What evil lurks in the dark? A question we have all asked ourselves many times. Together, we can start uncovering the truth and mystery behind the darker side of the otherworldly. And now your host of See You in the Dark, Michelle Roos.
Good evening to everyone, and welcome back to See You in the Dark. Tonight, we're going to do something a little different. We have talked about dark entities, we've talked about the paranormal, we've talked about spiritual attacks and spiritual warfare, but we've also go down one of these other roads of, you know, what about horror films? What about the suspense thriller films? Do they affect those? And will that actually bring a darkness to copy of what they're seeing? You know, a lot of these films have been made to go with parts of true stories, and kind of looking at it in the sense of, we're going to make this a horror flick. Well, as I started thinking about some of this, I'm like, who better to come on and kind of just have a little bit of fun with it, but also talk about the darker side of some of that. A really good friend of mine, also a colleague, his name is David J. Paul. Now, he has been acting in a lot of horror flicks. He's also a producer, he creates stories, a casting director, but he also has a lot of other things he knows how to do. And I'm like, you know what? Let's have some fun tonight with this. So, without wasting any more time, let's welcome my special guest, David J. Paul. Good evening, sir. How are you? I think David is
Michelle, thank you for
there.
having me on.
You, yes, yes. So, what we want to do is kind of just start and give everybody a little bit of a background about you, David, so they kind of understand as we're going into this topic tonight.
Okay. So in 1995, I wanted to become a professional athlete, and I went out to Los Angeles, and I was a walk on for the Los Angeles Clippers minor league team. It was the CBA league back then. And I injured myself. So, like, pretty bad. I injured myself. And I went to sports rehab, and I decided I want to try a different sport. So I went into the PBA tour for professional bowling, and I made that to a high level, and then I injured myself again. So I said to myself, I am done going professionally for sports. And then I said to myself, what else do I want to do to reach another level at a high level? I'm a competitor. I love to be challenged in life itself, and decided one day I wanted to try and be an actor. So I didn't know if it was going to be hard. I didn't know if it was going to be challenging or easy, but I decided the heck with it. I mean, I like the challenge anyway. So I went out, and first time I was a featured background actor in a movie with Downtown Julie Brown from MTV. I'm sure you know who that is. And then from there, I started enjoying it more. And then I wanted to challenge myself again. I went out to New York, and I went out for the big projects. And then I got a line, and I started speaking in movies. And then from there, I wanted to be in this industry. I wanted to see how far I could go. I wanted to see different levels in the industry. I want to tackle different genres in the industry. And then I fell in love with horror. And I love scary stuff. And I love paranormal and ghost stuff and UFOs and the whole nine yards. So I decided I want to focus more on that kind of genre because it fascinates me a lot. And then I decided not only to be an actor, but then I wanted to take up another level in acting. And then I wanted to become a casting director. And from casting, I wanted to be a story creator. So I had a lot of stories that kept popping in my mind. So then I wanted to find out how can I bring that to a screenplay. And then I found a nice connection, or actually two connections, that people could write on their laptops or computers of screenplays. So then my story became on a movie script. And then I decided, I'm self taught. So I reached out and I started casting. And then before long, I was like, I could do this. And here I am, 70 to 75 movies later, and dipping deeper and deeper into the movie industry and reaching a much higher plateau. And um, yeah, so I love the horror industry. I love the ghost and paranormal. And that's what got me really, really interested. And now I just want to take it to a whole new level again.
And I know that we have had some conversations of where some of these movies have gone, because we were talking like 70s and 80s, how they actually had storylines behind these. Now it's just like blood and gore and that's it. I have, you know, been honored to read some of your scripts and you have a storyline behind it for people to follow. Um, how important is that to you to make sure that it's just not a slasher gut kind of horror flick and having a storyline behind the whole thing?
You just got to say it one more time. You kind of cut out a little bit. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. So doing your scripts, how important is it for you to have a storyline behind what you write compared to others that just want to do uh, blood and guts?
Well, it's pretty important. I like when it comes to horror writing and scary movies and all that good stuff. You don't want to just make a movie and it's like nudity and blood and gore and having people die. I'm more of the person where I like to actually have a story behind it so it makes more sense and people could actually feel like it really could happen. I don't like the far-fetched stuff. I like the stuff that is really believable. So when it comes to the death scenes and the anticipation of what's about to happen, I like it that it could be believable. That's what draws more of the interest and more of the fan base to these kind of movies. I'm just not into like all the fake stuff, or it's so far fetched that it's hard to believe, kind of thing.
So when you are writing these stories and stuff like that, is it something that just kind of pops in your head? Or is it something that you have done like during the day and it just started, just flowing out the creativity?
It's a little bit of both. Um, Believe it or not, during my day, when I wake up in the morning, uh, or I wouldn't say during the day, but when I wake up in the morning, my mind is really fresh and it's circling with a lot of ideas. Sometimes I don't even realize where the heck it even comes from. It just pops in. And when it pops in, I kind of take a real quick pad and pen and I jot down a lot of the summing up of what the ideas are. And then when I look it over, I try and make it fit into a believable story. Um, so really, it usually happens when I wake up in the morning when my mind's really fresh. That's when it usually happens. But during the day, if something happens to me, like unexplainable or just anything out of the blue that catches my eye, then I write things down again. And then I could see if I can make that work into a story. So it's pretty much with me almost 24 hours.
Well, and so, when I have looked at some of the, horror genre, we did have different movies out there that had some kind of storyline. And I know back in, the 80s and stuff, a lot of those, of course, like if anybody watched Friday the 13th, your 80s slasher movies. Do you ever think that watching some of these movies, um, that it could actually affect people to actually react what they're watching? Do you think it can cause having people become like serial killers?
Absolutely. I see. The thing is this, um, in society today, there is people that when they watch a movie like Friday the 13th or Texas Chainsaw Massacre or anything like that, their mind, especially the younger kids, their mind is still not fully developed when they watch these movies. You know, the saying goes, your mind's not fully developed till you're 25 years old. And a lot of these kids, they watch it when they're younger. So they truly believe that when you're watching these kind of movies, Hollywood and all these other production companies, they make it look like it's real, like it really happens. And that's when the kids' imaginations run wild and say, wow, this could really happen in real life. And I thought that was really cool. Let me try and see if I could get away with it and have fun doing it, because that was so awesome for what I saw. But they don't realize the consequences when they really do that it's just a movie. It's not real. Only if you have like a TV show or a movie where mainly it says based on true events, then those people did the research and realized this really did happen, and then they make that into a movie. And then things like that really could trigger the mind even more in a deeper aspect of, I'm going to commit this. I'm going to make sure that I'm doing what they did, because like I said, they're fascinated. It's cool. They maybe got away with it. So I truly believe a lot of that stuff really can happen.
Well, let me ask you this question. We're going to go a little bit deeper than that. When I remember when they first came out with the first Exorcist, and they were talking about all these crazy things that were happening on set, people getting hurt, getting sick, different things like that. Do you think when you start getting in those types of movies, when it talks about, demonic things, possessions, what is your feeling or thoughts of something being opened when those types of films are being made? Is there an actual vortex that gets open? Are we inviting some of the evil in? Kind of give me what you think about it.
I totally agree. I think that when you invite something and give permission to something, um, usually it happens. You don't fight it. You just let it, overcome. I think that the more that we do things like this, the more we invite things out, because we're so fascinated and we want to believe that we are opening things. There was actually, believe it or not, I was in a movie called Bloody Nun 3, and I had to go out to New York, and I had to film in a church. It's supposed to be a haunted church, and we filmed a horror film, like a paranormal ghost film. And when we were filming that, weird stuff, I started feeling like overcoming me. Like I started feeling a little bit more depressed in a way. When I went home, I felt like I wasn't myself a little bit. I was very emotional, and I didn't understand where the heck all that stuff was coming from because I was just acting. And then I found out when I went to a church locally nearby. I went to this priest and I said, "Hey, I'm not feeling well." And the priest asked me, "Well, what's going on?" And I said, I'm a movie actor, and I just filmed a movie called Bloody Nun in a church. And when I left, I didn't feel the same. And then he was talking to me, and then he says that you opened yourself up to that character and made it so believable that something took a hold of you. And it's a good thing you came here for help because I am going to help you get rid of it. And then when I left and I went back home, I woke up the next morning and I felt normal again. I didn't feel like that. So I totally believe in we open things up like that.
And see, and I've always believed that too. Just like I said, when we're talking about The Exorcist or even the movie Poltergeist, there are some real things and other things going from there. So, do you think that when these movies are being made, do they ever think of that paranormal or the unexplainable could be happening that, they bring onto the set any type of grounding or protection or anything like that before these films are made? Or are there certain rituals or blessings that are done on the set before they're made? Have you ever done any of that, or do you know of people that do that?
Michelle, great questions. Great questions. You're good at this. I have to say, absolutely, with no doubt in my mind, the answer is no.
Okay. And I
Like
was
I
always
said,
curious.
it's the
Yeah.
entertainment industry. It's the movie industry. They're willing to do whatever they have to do to make it work. But guess what? Once you go in, I usually ask questions when it's the ghost and paranormal stuff. And I ask those similar questions. I don't want to get possessed if I'm going to do this, if you guys aren't protecting me or anybody else. And I go back home and I'm a whole different person. And they're like, "Well, what do you mean?" I'm like, "Yep, I knew it." So they don't do any of that stuff. I've been in numerous of things and they don't do it. They don't even know one aspect of protection or helping actors or actresses or crew. They don't know what they're doing. They just go by the script and they do what has to be done to make the movie. And they have no idea what the consequences could be. And they have no idea, or maybe they don't even care. They just want to make movies and make it a hit and then move on to something else.
Well, and it kind of, I look at it at both sense. Of course, I am a horror junkie, love it, and always have been drawn to it. But it started making me really think as I was watching and looking, going to that point of, when we're doing this stuff, especially nowadays with all the extra special effects and all the things that they add to these movies, is this like a calling of something that, could be opening these portals of letting things in? I mean, we all have different beliefs, but at the same time, is it because we're not protecting ourselves? Is this like a gateway to letting the other side towards us? It's been something I've always pondered on, and it's really, everybody thinks the only way you would have some of this happening is if you do paranormal or something. I feel like doing horror flicks like that and stuff could also make that stuff happen. Um, and like in your case, doing it in a church, especially when you're doing something in a haunted location and you're guy filming that. And it makes me wonder if sometimes doing those kind of films are they considered a ritual of opening to the other side? What are your thoughts?
YES. Yes, yes, yes.
Well, I would agree that too. Again, we are going to be working on some great projects too. And that's kind of why I was thinking about it. We've got projects where we're talking, and we're going to be doing that has something to do with folklore. That is also part of, we're talking about, Native Americans and different things they do. But then we're going to flip the script and kind of go into that suspense thriller type of thing. So it was kind of making me wonder, when I do paranormal, I always protect myself and I do all this. But is this something that I might need to take along when I'm going on the set? Would that become like a ritual for me to do my own protection and all that just in case because you end up getting wide opened? I mean, after what happened to you,
Michelle,
yeah.
when we go on sets like this, yeah, well, when we go on sets like this, I would have to say because we're doing a lot more stories and we're digging deeper into the more of the scary side of the stories,
Uh-huh.
and we're digging into territories with the ghosts and paranormal. We're digging into the side of urban legends. We're digging into sides where people heard of things but never really capitalized on what they hear. As you know as much as I do, which a lot of stuff we can't say due to NDA contracts, um, we are dipping into that side. And I know for a fact that we're going to have to do something before we step into any territory of what we're about to do. And we really have to cleanse everybody. We have to protect everybody. We have to do whatever we have to do. So when we get on set, we don't have to really start delaying any kind of projects or anything that happens to us if you don't protect yourself. So the answer is yes, we have to do that because I sure as heck don't want to go back home and go back crying like a big baby, going back to the priest at the church and saying, "Help me again." They're like, "Oh, you did that again?" And I'm like, "Yep." So I don't want that to happen.
Yeah, and it seems like, of course, we've, like you said, signed the contracts and stuff like that, but at some point with the way society is, they want that, that extreme because we've gotten to the point where everything's been so visual that we want more, more, and more. And so now we are trying to add more to it. How far can we push it? And, as I've been tapping in, talking to you, and we actually have a great bunch of people that we're going to be working with, that are on the spiritual side. I'm like, with us all being open the way we are, I have abilities, you have abilities. It probably would be really, really wise, especially with the other parts who are all have abilities, to maybe start some kind of ritual that would help keep people, protected.
Yes, we will. And before we do anything, we're going to get everybody together and we're going to tell everybody it's a must that we have to take care of this first and foremost for our safety, our health, our even our lives. And
Mhm.
you know, we're definitely going to have to do that because, like I said, I don't want anybody going in, expecting to have a great fun time making history in the making with these movies and TV shows that we're about to do, and we come back home and then we hear stories of what they had to go through, similar to what I had to go through. I would feel guilty as could be, and I would, we're all there to protect each other and have fun, and we're gonna have to start stepping up our game before we
Yeah.
enter every single project from here on out.
So we definitely are going to keep talking about some of this, but we're going to take a short break. We will be right back.
Hey, UFO conference enthusiasts. We've got another great event for you in 2024. The Saucers and Aliens Kansas UFO Day in Dimension G is being held in the UFO capital of Kansas, Geneseo, on July 6th. This is a fun festival in the middle of nowhere. There will be a parade, decorated yards, costumes, vendors, speakers, and a showing of the movie The Day the Earth Stood Still. Appropriately, an 8-foot-tall statue of Gort and a statue of Klaatu will be dedicated. This will be the only museum in the U.S. with these custom-made statues. If you'd like to donate to the statue project or attend the event, visit GeneseoMuseum.com. That's GENESEO Museum.com. Be sure to bring your camera when you attend the event. That's GeneseoMuseum.com.
While most near-death experiencers return to this plane of existence with alluring tales of their time spent in the presence of the divine, what happens when one crosses the veil into the afterlife, into the void? In the new book, Dying to Meet Them, Mindy Toutfest describes her journey to the afterlife after a devastating aneurysm, how a strange turn of events would lead her to spiritual growth, divine healing, UFO experiences, and a greater understanding of the universe. Get your copy of Dying to Meet Them today at Amazon.com or visit unexmedia.com for more information on this book and more amazing selections from Unex Media Publishing at unexmedia.com.
This is Margie Kay, and I'd like to say thank you to all of our KUNX show hosts, staff, listeners, and viewers for making us number one on Paranormal Talk Radio.
Welcome back, everybody. I'd like to take a moment just to say hello to anybody that's new and has just joined us. We're talking about, the horror genre, the films, how far they've come, what they're using, but also looking at it in a different light. does it affect anything on the spiritual side? Or, do we sit and take it too far? Is it feeding in? Are we welcoming things? We have talked about The Exorcist and Poltergeist and things like that, where people had experienced, sickness and getting hurt. And how far do we take this? Can some of these movies trigger people to go in a little bit further than what they should and try to play those out? So with all that, I had thought about, hey, I've got the best guest to come in and kind of talk with us. So welcome back, Mr. David J. Paul. Are you with us?
I'm still here. You didn't get rid of me yet.
Okay, I was hoping you didn't run. We were talking about, protection, different things like that when these movies are made. And now let's, if we talk about trigger points. I know the big case that made it all over TV was when that movie Slender Man came out. It really drew in a lot of your younger viewers, and some of them actually acted out and killed one of their friends because they thought Slender Man made them do it. When we're talking about these types of movies, even though I loved watching them and stuff, do you think at some point are they pushing it too far, or is it something that we should like relook of how they do things?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both. I think that in some cases, like me, I like to push the envelope to a different level of work. I
Yeah,
like to be different than everybody else, be unique, be different, right? That's how you stand
yeah,
out. And that's how a lot more people are drawn to you because it's different. So, with a lot of these people that I personally know privately that make movies, they asked me to read their screenplay and they said, "Hey, you're typecast in the horror industry. You like this stuff. Can you please read my screenplay and let me know what you think?" I say, "No problem." I read it. I message them back and dude, you're going way too far with this movie. And it's just at a point where people don't want to do the same things that have been done before. So they want to make the money, they want the fan base, they want the attention. So they do go the extra mile. And sometimes they go a little too far. There's times where when they go too far, people quit on set because they feel different actually doing it. They feel like they're really, really involved in something that is more like sinister, more darker. And, in the movies, what happens is in the screenplay, when you memorize things and think that the scenes are coming up, they kind of change it on you last minute and they make you do things differently that you're not ready for. When those things happen, you get caught off guard. When you get caught off guard, if it's something like in the paranormal or something out of the ordinary that you kind of believe that could happen, it will freak you out to a point where it'll mess with your head. And then, of course, you know what happens after that. When it messes with your head, then you go see a psychiatrist, and that's not fun. But I do believe people do take it to another level, sometimes unnecessary. But then again, there's other people that like to keep it going the way it is. They like to keep it safe. They like to keep some of the real facts in their movies. But then again, they like to exaggerate at times as well, but not so much of an exaggeration. So, Michelle, I believe it's a little bit of both, to be exact.
no, and I kind of agree with that, what you had said. And if you're just starting to listen with us and all that, please make sure you know that we're not putting these films down. We're part of those types of films, especially Mr. David J. Paul has acted in a lot of them. But again, it just was one of those things, those curiosity kind of bit me of how does it intertwine, on that spiritual side? Because we have noticed there's been like an awakening for a lot of people who have abilities, people who have always had something but didn't really know what those were. They're kind of awakening up. And so, you're probably noticing it in the films that we watch or, and all that. And so this is why we're kind of checking it out to see, is there that line? Because not just horror flicks. I mean, think about your suspense thrillers, the ones of the serial killers. When they had put out the movie of Dahmer, you know, you look at that. He had a following, and people just thought that was the craziest thing, but loved it. And then look at when they did Ted Bundy. They put those actors in that kind of draw you into it, but made it more of, "Oh my god, I would love to be with him. I wish I was with him," and things like that. And, they kinda cross those lines. And so sometimes I wonder, is it more glorified, or is it actually there to start opening things and make us follow? Does that make any sense? So again, I'm not putting down the horror flicks or the suspense thrillers, just kinda going in a different area. And again, all my listeners, you know what I say. It doesn't matter what your religious space is, what you do. Everybody does something a little different. This is kind of more of just an open forum. Some might agree with us. Some might think, yeah, they're both on crack, whatever. But again, this is kind of an open forum to kind of talk about all those. Um, so, David, quick question for you. My question is, when have you ever been on a set where you're about to do something that's just going to be super horrible in it? And do you ever get that little voice of, hey, you might not want to do this piece and you might want to step away from it? Has that ever happened to you?
That's a good one, Michelle. You got me. I have to say, in the very beginning of my career, I said I'm just going to take everything that comes my way. I want to get the experience, no matter if it's bad, the good, or the ugly. And that's how I learn. I learn by experience and self-taught. So there was a time where some of my friends in the industry calls me privately and says, Dave, you got to stop taking everything. And I was these roles. I'm getting better and better every time. I'm getting more believable. But then again, I'm getting more believable and getting better and better with all these roles because I don't know, like, is this really changing me as a person? Is it changing me mentally? Is it changing me psychologically? Is it changing me from who I used to be into all these crazy characters? Like, remember what I said, I'm very typecast in the horror industry. So
Yep.
I'm not used to acting in something that's funny. I'm not used to acting something that's really family oriented. I'm used to taking things that are like death or scary or a killing or, I'm not used to going outside of that realm. So I think when I started getting used to, more and more roles, I started realizing I'm at the level now where I could say no. I'm at the level where I already mentally changed with so many roles that I get drained. I get tired. And because don't forget, you got to transform your whole personality and look to that character. So it's very draining when you become that person. And then it's even more challenging when the movie's done to get out of that character mentally to become yourself again. And I thought I was fine when I tried to transform myself back to being a normal, happy, fun, wear your heart in your sleeve kind of guy. But then when my friends and family said, you're not the same person anymore, then I said to myself, what are you talking about? And then that's when I knew I needed help to get back from those, characters that I really, really worked my tail off to become. So you can lose yourself very easily in characters, especially in the horror industry, in the paranormal field, in the UFO field, like anything in that nature, in that kind of genre, that could be scary. And if you don't get help to try and change it soon enough, then you could lose yourself. And that's when people, commit suicide. That's when people kind of like act differently to a point where you lose your family, you lose your friends, so it is kind of dangerous. You could easily lose yourself in that.
And see, that actually happens just in the paranormal field itself because, I think we're all, mechanically with our brain, we always want to know the answers or we want to be one step better. When we're even doing investigations, you might be getting some of the answers, but you want to find more. So you kind of just have to put everything you have into that. So I could understand with the being a character how those two would kind of mesh. Have you ever played like a serial killer role where after the role was done, that's what people thought of you only? And that was kind of like, okay, that he really played that really well. I wonder what if he's like that.
Michelle, great question again, Michelle. Great question. So, I have a daughter. Her name's Amanda. She's 15 years old. Um, I would say when she was 13, she goes to school. She told me ahead of time she's going to class, and in this class, the teacher says, what does your parents do for a living day? From the school principal. And they said, Mr. Paul, I need you to come in right now. It's an emergency. So I'm thinking, oh my God, I got to go quick. It's about my daughter. So I said, I'll be right there. Next thing you know, when I arrive, they say, thank you for coming in last minute time. Assistant principal's there and security's there. They closed the door behind me. And I said, what is this about? What did my daughter do? And they're like, it's not about your daughter. It's about you, sir. And I said, okay, what happened? They said that when we asked Amanda, what does your dad do for a living? Your daughter says he kills people for a living.
Oh my goodness.
So I said, what? And I said, I'm confused. And then that's when I realized they saw one of my movies that I was a killer, where they thought I actually killed people for a living, until I actually had to show them it's just a movie. So, yes, really believable stuff that if you pull it off just right, people will believe that you actually are that person in real life.
Well, and has any of your characters, like a lot of people get obsessed with a lot of things, we all have conspiracy theories out there and we get obsessed with a lot of it and it draws us in and we always try to find that answer. Now, with you and some of these films, have you ever been so obsessed with one character because you figured there could be more to that character that it pretty much drove you insane?
Yes, there was a movie that I created and already filmed. It's called The Secret Mechanic. It was by far the most the most draining, crazy idea character I ever came up with as an actor. I played a schizophrenic, bipolar disorder kind of guy. So I'm talking to myself. So in that kind of movie, I had a brother who when he's with me, I'm normal. I'm okay. But then when my brother's not with me, brain becomes the crazy person and the killer, and I become crazy. I kill people. Um, that that was a very very big challenging character, and for something like that, I know it happens in real life with a lot of people. Bipolar, schizophrenic. I know a lot of people are out there for that. So I wanted to tackle something like that and try and feel like one of those kind of human beings out in the real world. I want to know what they go through. I want to feel it. I want to channel myself into that. So yes, that is it could be an obsession afterwards once you tackled something that really fascinates you and fascinates what goes in their minds. And now we're actually talking about making a sequel of it. So I'm excited to dip farther into that kind of research and see take it to a whole new level. Things like that fascinate me. And if people want to see that, Michelle, they could always go to YouTube and type in The Secret Mechanic, and they could watch and see how I transformed into something like that. It is pretty fascinating, and I like to dip back into things like that.
Are you ever worried that when you're doing a character like that, like you said, you really had to tap into it to get into that mind frame? Um, Now doing a second one, getting back in there and trying to go a little deeper with it because now you're going into, I got to push it a little further to make number two. Are you ever worried that at some point, your own brain is just going to go pop and then it's going to just suck you in?
It could always happen. You never say never. The mind is a tricky part of the body. That's the reason why I'm going to take some precautionary measures when I do the next one, because the next one is going to be more of a higher level. So I'm going to have people behind the scenes that are EMTs and are going to have a secret symbol or word or sign that if I'm not feeling right or myself, or if they see I'm not right or myself, they call cut and they come check on me and see what's going on. Because when I usually dig deep into characters, I really dig deep to a point where I need the fans and the audience to really believe it. Like I said, people could lose themselves easily at that kind of level. For me, I haven't lost it yet. So as a competitor, I like to challenge myself to go somewhere higher. I'm hoping it doesn't change me, or I'm hoping that nothing bad happens. But like I said, in order to believe something, you have to go the full mile. So in the back of my mind, yes, I do get nervous, but that's part of the game.
Yeah, and you've heard a lot, there's been a lot of big A-listers out there that have taken on characters that they actually had to have like medical staff on set because it was really messing with their mind and they got to the point where they didn't know where they themselves or that character. Um, One before we start wrapping things up, I have one other question for you. This is a doozy. At any time doing any of these horror flicks, especially when it becomes one of those horror flicks that are more on the spiritual side, what are your beliefs of somebody getting attacked or get oppressed by a negative entity like a demon?
Well, Michelle, I'm not really worried. Do you know why?
Why?
I have the best demonologist right next to me. You know who that is?
I have no clue. I have no clue.
Michelle will never let anything happen. And if you do, If you do allow something to happen, you will be fired on the spot.
I hear you. But no, and
But
it was a serious question. Do you think that that could actually happen in a movie? Because like you said, you get into this character and you become this character, so, everything changes. Do you think that would open them up for anything like that?
absolutely, it's just like anything. Once you become a certain character, you have to be that character. No matter how much you're scared of doing it, you already agreed to it when you read the script. You already agreed to it of knowing what that character has to do, and you also agreed to go through it through beginning, middle, and end. And you know the risks. You
Okay.
sign
Yeah.
contracts, you sign NDAs. You have to go through with it. So when, when people do it, they know the consequences, that anything can happen. But when you do it, like I said, you have to know people that know what they're doing when things like that. If it does happen, you have to have people that know how to help you before it even happens, or if it does happen, how to save you before it's too late. And I always take things serious like that. And when we do shows and when we do movies, when it involves that, I always make sure when I do casting for cast, crew, no matter who they are, I always go through the checklist of A to Z. One, two, or even three people, if it comes down to that, to save anybody and prepare anybody for nightmares like that. So I definitely believe in that. But like I said, you're entering at your own risk. You know what's at stake.
Yeah, and you do because we're talking about them putting their energy into that character. They're bringing to life a character. And I think about that kind of stuff too because we talk a lot about intentions and we talk about how we manifest our own things with the intentions we bring behind. We're starting to wrap up a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about, again, myself and David, not putting down the film industry or putting down any type of films, but looking at the horror films or the suspense thriller films more in depth of how does it cross over to our daily lives. And that's something we want to, kind of look at. So next time you're watching a movie or a show, especially when you guys are watching David, like he said, jump over to YouTube and watch his show. The energy and the intentions they put into those characters, no matter how good or bad they are. Do we sit back and think, does it open up another realm? Do we start inviting things that would attach to us to bring those characters to life? Are we protecting ourselves a little more? And are those intentions that we're doing because we want to be the best of the best because that's how we are as a human race? Where do we draw those lines? And also, where do we draw those lines of how believable do we make those because of the people who are watching? There's a lot of questions. I mean, we could go down this big rabbit hole of just trying to figure out where everything kind of meets. And hey, I said the rabbit hole. I just want to let you guys know real quick before we start closing up that we have an amazing, unique, and fun experience called Into the Rabbit Hole, the XCon for 2024. It's actually going to be held October 11th through the 13th in Springfield, Missouri. I was there last year. It was amazing. You get anything from cryptids, UFOs, paranormal, and the people you meet there are amazing. They will be putting a link up showing where you can go and actually get your tickets early. And if you guys are watching it on YouTube, the registration is scrolling on the bottom. Again, it's October 11th through the 13th. I would love to see you guys there. I am honored to be speaking there again this year, and I can't wait. But what I'd like to do is take a moment. David, I want to thank you so much for being with us tonight. I can't wait till we're on the sets together, to really tap into when we're getting in our characters, how far those will go and how what happens. Because now it's going to become like a science project, not just doing the movie, but also watching how people bring their characters to life and see what happens if it continues or if something spiritual or paranormal might happen. Myself and David are working on a couple of really big projects. I am super excited for that. And David, thank you so much for joining us tonight. And also telling everyone that's listened, thank you for
Hmm.
listening and following. And want to let everyone know that I am sending you lots of love and light. And myself and David, as we say goodbye, will see you in the dark.